Só para estar aqui.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, speaking English is very difficult for me, but I'm trying. It's a big challenge speaking English, and every time I meet Mr. Takahiro, he said, "Your English is much better than the last time I saw you." And this makes me feel happy. Thank you. Since the end of the 1990, Morhan has been convincing that the movements of people affected by Hansen's disease could organize themselves jointly to face stigma and invisibility. From the creation of Hansen in Colombia, a federation of the entities of people affected by Hansen's disease with a federative structure similar to the national Morhan in Brazil. The possibility of a Latin exchange began to enable its format. National Morhan sent representatives to the national meeting of Hansen in 2016, 2017, and 2018. In 2017, a Latin America and Caribbean meeting was approved to be realized in Brazil in 2019. By Off Nippon Foundation, Morhan discussed the proposal at a foundation event in Bangkok, which added the global guidelines of promoting regional meetings and the global meetings with the World Congress in Philippines. Therefore, with the signaling of a possible meeting during the Hansen in September 2018 in Bogotá, Colombia, guidelines were aligned for the historic meeting realization. The Nippon Foundation decisive incentive provided the required stimulus to that Morhan could support Fiocruz and Brazilian Minister of Health. Then it was possible to maintain the necessary science and quality to reach the excellent result well beyond what was expected. With the theme People in Search of Dignity and focus on the defense of the human rights of people affected by Hansen's disease, the first Latin American Caribbean meeting of entities of people affected was the first event in which a soft exchange between people affected by the disease was possible. Unlike other events that had only the participation, this event was organized with the central role of the entities and people affected. This differential brought a glance and legitimacy to discuss and elaborating proposals sent by those who live the issues of Hansen's disease daily, under a different perspective of the management, health services, and governments. The official team has the purpose to gather the entities of people affected by Hansen's disease, governments, non-governmental organizations, and other partners for the strengthening and expansion of the dialogue between the civil society and governments, in order to advance the protection and inclusion of these people in the struggle against the stigma and discrimination, and as well as for the disease elimination. The meeting was focused on the strategies to promote the implementation of the third pillar of the global strategy of Hansen's disease and 2016-2020 of the World Health Organization, with focus on the elimination of discrimination and promotion of the inclusion of people affected by Hansen's disease and the principle and guidelines of the United Nations Human Rights Council. From March 11 to 14, 2019, with the participation of the social movements from Brazil, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Paraguay, Peru, USA, Portugal, Germany, and Japan, and the representatives of organizations from the Pan American Health Organization, World Health Organization, the mandate of the United Nations for the elimination of discrimination against people affected by Hansen's disease and their family members. Nippon Foundation, Ministry of Health and Brazilian Society of Hanseníase, and the National Health Council. Everyone has the possibility to discuss together, exchange their experiences, debate the politics of their countries, and enable the exchange and stimulate people and entities of their daily struggle. Now, I present their excellent results from this forum. The meeting structure was designed to stimulate the interaction and exchange among the delegates who were hosted in the same place, distribution of complete schedule about the event, transfer, and etc. The first activity of the guest reception was to introduce themselves. Representatives of Morhan and Hansen presented the event schedule and everyday arrangements regarding the organizations of the activities. And presentation of Nana Kozak, artist and voluntary social work of Morhan, who relaxed the new delegates with samba and bossa nova songs. The first Latin and Caribbean meeting had more than debates and deliberation. The exchange between cultures was also stimulated in the program. I toured to iconic monument, the Christ the Redeemer, Mr. Yuri Guerra, Morhan's volunteer, best baritone living in Italy, revelation of the international lyrical singer, opening the event with the national anthem and a song of Villa Lobos, the launch of the book Portraits of a Public Policy, Memories of Violated Childhoods in Brazil and Portugal by Mrs. Lilia Angélica da Silva Souza. The work discusses the history of the children separated from their parents by the compulsory isolation of Hanseníase in both countries. Creation of the Latin America and Caribbean coalition of entities of people affected by Hanseníase. The most representative deliberation of the first Latin American Caribbean meeting results was certainly the creation unanimously in the final plenary of the Latin America and Caribbean coalition of entities of people affected by Hanseníase, Clasha Hansen. The meeting was decided that the Fela Hansen meeting in September 2019 should present the definitions concerning the structure and drafting of the principal areas. Also, the organizations of Latin America and Caribbean meetings every 3 years were decided, and the next will be held in Colombia in 2022. Cooperation agreement with Fiocruz. During the event opening, Fundação Oswaldo Cruz Fiocruz was signed an agreement of technical scientific cooperation with the movement for reintegration of people affected by Hansen disease Morhan. The agreement aims the development of public policies focused on the struggle against prejudice regarding the people affected by Hansen disease and debates on successful experiences, and as well as the development of collaborative strategies in the fields of historical preservation, communication and rehabilitation of people affected. The document was signed by the president of this institution, Mr. Nízia Trindade, and the national coordinator of Morhan, Mr. Arthur Custódio, have as witnesses the coordinator of the Coordination General of the Hansen disease and disease and elimination of their Minister of Health, Mrs. Carmelita, and me, also national coordinator of the movement. National Observatory of Human Rights and Hansen disease. The observatory was introduced by the public defender, Mr. Yuri Costa. Individual and institutional discriminatory attitudes will be observed, making within the scope of the public service have as its axis the right to have an integral treatment, preservation of the heritage and memory protection of the human rights of people affected by the disease and their families. The complaint may be made use in the form of the observatory. the actions and recommendations of the special mandate of the United Nations. In her speech, the United Nations Rapporteur for the Elimination of Discrimination Against People Affected by Hansen's Disease and their family members, Dr. Alice Cruz, showed that she is connected with one of the principles of the Latin American Caribbean meeting, the protagonism of people affected by Hansen's disease. The research presented the main mechanisms of actions of the special mandate that she represents, among them elaboration of the reports that can support the state's actions and transversalite action, including United Nations special mandates, which is assistant to establish the link between the Hansen's disease and the social exclusion. Dr. Alice said, the families of the people affected by Hansen's disease prove to the world that Hansen's disease is much better than a disease, that Hansen's disease has become, throughout their history, a social category used for exclusion. Mrs. Alice Cruz recommended to the Latin American Caribbean meeting participants a special attention to the guideline number 14 of the principle and guidelines for the elimination of discrimination against the people affected by Hansen's disease and their family members, approved by the United Nations General Assembly in 2010. Guideline recommended that member states set up a committee to develop measures for the promotion of the substantive equality of people affected by Hansen's disease and their family member. This guideline is fairly represented in the several proposals approved in the final plenary. Coalition unified the terminology about disease. Another highlight was the adoption by Kasia Hansen of the terminology Hanseníase, Hansen's disease, or simple Hansen, replacing the term related to the outdated word leprosy for the designation of the disease and the people affected by it. The proposal approved at the final plenary was presented by activists from Brazil, a country that has officially adopted this terminology since 1995. The discussion about the terminology has its high point in the event in my speech on March 13. I remember that the manner to refer to other pathologies that were also known by the term leprosy has changed in our society. And I said, so regarding Hansen's disease with this attachment to leprosy in the present, in my call for the dialogue, claiming a more humanized vision, and said, I speak as a person who wants to be seen in its integrality. I'm not a leper. I'm a human being with a history, in fact with many stories, and one of them is my experience with Hansen's disease terminology. The plenary approved the submission of the suggestion to the World Meeting of Affected People in the International Hansen's Disease Congress here in Philippines. Creation of the Latin America and Caribbean Protection Network for the immigrant affected by Hansen's disease. Another proposal approved in the meeting was the expansion of the current assistance committee for the Brazilian immigrant affected by Hansen's disease to all Latin Americans and Caribbeans, and also its extension to other regions. Therefore, the Latin American Caribbean Protection Network for the immigrant affected by Hansen's disease was created. The proposal gained strength with the presentation of the roundtable on March 13 of the history of Mrs. Evelyn Leandro, a 37 years old Brazilian who lives in Germany for 9 years and had many difficulties to be diagnosed with the disease in a country where it's a very rare and almost no doctor knows it. Gender, parity and equity, women's voice was heard, and Therefore, the need of gender parity was also agreed in the guidelines of the local, national, and international coalitions of people affected by the disease. In addition, the approved proposals covered the requirement of producing data about Hansen disease that consider issues related to equity, gender, race, class, and sexual orientation. And finally, the discussion table and final plenary were held in the auditorium of the Fundação Oswaldo Cruz, with cultural activities standing in the lobby of the building, in activity that required from the organizing committee a special structure of personnel to ensure that access to all, with special attention to participants with special needs. The meeting was named Marielle Franco in tribute to the Brazilian social fighter killed exactly 1 year before, on March 14, 2018, in act to confirm the requirement of all involved movements for response regarding the circumstance of her murder, for justice to her memory, solidarity to her family, and in defense of democracy. The proposals approved in the Marielle Franco meeting divided by thematic axis, participation and equity, interaction with United Nations and World Health Organization, proposal to governments, education and communication promotion, human rights, research and health promotion, memory, remedy, and confrontation of discriminatory policy. And is my son, Josué. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Faustino Pinto, for that very impressive presentation. Okay, from the 3 results of the 3 regional assemblies have been conducted from Africa, from Asia, and South America, we can see and hear that we share the same goal, and that is to make change in the lives and uplift the lives of our brothers and sisters who are affected with the leprosy or the Hansen's disease. And at this juncture, we have finished our session for this morning, and the time check is already 12, and we will have a break for lunch, and our lunch will be there also, out on that door. Okay, so please help yourselves, and let's proceed to take our lunch at the doors at the back. Thank you so much. You don't like to have your lunch yet?